There's a reason you felt so isolated, so unseen, and so forgotten in this quiet season. But what if I told you that silence was never a punishment? It was a shield. What if every moment where you felt overlooked, ignored, or delayed was actually a divine strategy working in your favor? Chosen one, this season, the one that seemed like nothing was moving, nothing was growing, and no one was listening, may have been the exact protection your soul needed. And now, everything is shifting. Everything you've endured in stillness is about to make sense. You weren't being rejected. You were being redirected for something far greater than you imagined. Watch this video until the end, not just with your eyes, but with your soul. Because hidden within these words are the affirmations you've been waiting to hear. And if something stirs within your soul, if you feel understood, if you feel that this is meant for you, write your deepest wish in the comments with 777. This is a moment when the energy around you begins to shift. Because the moment you accept your desire, the universe begins to reorganize itself to meet you. If you like the video and it also illuminates your inner self, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Think back to those nights when you cried silently, unsure if anyone heard, to the mornings you got up with a tired heart, forcing yourself to try again, to the moments you almost broke, but didn't. That wasn't weakness. That wasn't failure. That was endurance. That was the making of a warrior. While others were visible, loud, and praised, you were hidden. But hidden not because you were less. Hidden because what's sacred is always protected. The diamond is never found on the surface. The seed does its work in the dark. And chosen one, you've been growing in silence. So many around you misunderstood your absence. They thought your silence meant surrender. They assumed your quiet meant defeat. But what they couldn't see, what they never had access to, was a fire still burning beneath your stillness. A quiet fire, a holy transformation. You were being refined in private for a breakthrough that must be revealed in public. You weren't falling behind. You were stepping into alignment. The battles you didn't have to fight, the conversations you never had to explain yourself in, the doors that didn't open. They were all divine detours, saving you from what looked good but would have destroyed you. That relationship that ghosted you, it wasn't rejection. It was redirection from someone who couldn't walk with a version of you that's now awakening. That job that didn't call back, it wasn't a dead end. It was divine silence, a pause meant to push you toward purpose, not comfort. Every delay, every disconnect, every unanswered prayer, they were protection disguised as disappointment. Because if you would have got what you wanted when you wanted it, you might have settled. You might have stayed in a space that was never meant to hold your fullness. You might have married what was meant to be temporary. You might have trusted people who only saw your potential but not your purpose. But God saw ahead, and the silence you hated, it kept you safe. Chosen one, the truth is, not everyone was supposed to know you yet. Your full power, your full light, it was never meant to be exposed prematurely. There were people who would have tried to use it, to distort it, to dim it, but heaven whispered, not yet. And so you waited, not because you were forgotten, but because you were favored. You see, silence is never empty. It's filled with instruction, with recalibration, with divine whispers only your soul can hear. And if you've been in a season where no one checked on you, where opportunities felt silent, where your prayers felt like echoes in an empty room, just know this. The quiet was a confirmation that your next chapter is too big to be announced loudly. You're stepping into a season that will make the silence worth it. And those who thought you disappeared, they're about to watch you rise in ways that will confuse the noise they once made. Because when heaven hides someone, it's never for nothing. It's for preparation. You were not being punished. You were being preserved. The silence you endured wasn't a void. It was a womb. A sacred space where something greater was forming. You couldn't see it, but something was gestating deep within your spirit. While others were running to be seen, chasing platforms, rushing timelines, you were called to wait, to pause, to stay hidden. And now, as the layers begin to unfold, you'll understand why. Because what you carry is not ordinary. It's not meant to be rushed, exposed, or consumed too soon. The quiet season taught you what noise never could. How to listen, how to discern, how to trust something greater than the applause of the crowd. You learned to recognize divine timing, not popularity. And that is what set you apart. That is what shaped your clarity. That is what made you dangerous to the darkness. Chosen one. You were never delayed. You were being timed with precision, like an arrow pulled back before its release. The tension you felt was never a setback. It was alignment. It was pressure preparing your aim. And when you're released, when your time comes, you won't miss. You won't have to explain. You won't have to prove. The results will speak. They tried to figure you out during your quiet season. They poked, they prodded, they whispered. But the mystery of your calling wasn't theirs to solve. You were always encrypted, divinely encoded for something bigger than what they imagined. You don't owe them an explanation for silence, because what's about to unfold will be the loudest answer possible. This season of stillness gave you what speed never could: depth. You went deep when everyone else was skimming the surface. You sat with your pain instead of running from it. You listened to your heart even when it broke in silence. You stayed faithful even when the path made no sense. And in that process, your foundation became unshakable, because storms don't shake those who were built in silence. Critics don't break those who know who they are in the absence of praise. You didn't need the crowd to keep going. You didn't need the approval to keep believing. And now, that quiet obedience is unlocking doors no one will understand, not even you, because it won't make sense how things begin to move, how pieces start to align, how people who ignored you now seek you out. But don't be surprised. The quiet season trained you for this moment. You were taught how to hear instructions no one else heard. You were trained to move in obedience, not popularity. You were equipped to lead from a place of truth, not ego. That's what makes you different. That's why the silence had to be so loud. It had to strip away the noise, the expectations, the need to be seen, so that only the truth remained. And now, when the world begins to take notice, you'll remain grounded, because fame doesn't faze the one who's already met themselves in silence. You're not here to impress. You're here to impact. You're not here to be seen. You're here to reveal something that's never been seen before. You were kept hidden because the world wasn't ready. And maybe neither were you. But now you are. You're ready to carry what others dropped. Ready to speak what others were too afraid to say. Ready to lead without ego. To rise without apology. To heal without needing validation. And that kind of power, it doesn't come from being seen. It comes from surviving the silence. There were nights you questioned everything. Nights where silence wrapped around you like a heavy cloak, and you wondered if you'd been forgotten. You looked around and saw others advancing, rising, celebrated, and you sat in a still room with nothing but your thoughts and the ache of not yet. But chosen one, that ache was holy. It was evidence of something awakening inside you, something that couldn't be rushed or manufactured. While others were chasing validation, you were being stripped of false identities. The silence revealed what applause could never teach, that your worth was never tied to your productivity, that your value didn't decrease when no one clapped. You were being refined in a way that only solitude can do, because real growth often happens underground, unseen, uncelebrated, unshared. You didn't know it then, but the days where nothing seemed to move were actually the most active days in the spirit realm. That's where roots were growing deep. That's where your capacity was being expanded. That's where your resilience was being forged. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows, in the waiting, in the wondering, in the stillness. That's where your authority was born. Chosen one, some of your greatest answers came when no one was speaking. You learned to hear in silence. You discovered that clarity doesn't always come from a sermon or sign, but sometimes from sitting still long enough for your soul to speak. And now, that voice inside you is louder than the noise outside. That's the kind of strength they can't teach. That's the kind of strength they can't take. And it's why the quiet season was necessary. Because what's coming next would have overwhelmed the version of you before the silence. You would have sabotaged the very thing you prayed for had it come too soon. But now, you're stronger. You're wiser. You're ready. And it's not because you read the right book or found the right mentor. It's because you endured. You stayed. You kept showing up when no one else did. You chose character over clout. You chose process over performance. You chose to trust even when there was no confirmation. That's what makes you dangerous now. Not your talent, not your following, not your skill, but your ability to keep going when the noise fades. That's rare. That's divine. That's power forged in silence. And soon, those who counted you out will witness the rise they never saw coming. But here's the twist. You won't even need their recognition, because your value was never in their hands. You never needed them to crown you, because you were called from the beginning. Your name was already known in places they can't reach. That's why the silence never stopped you. It only sharpened you. So don't mourn the quiet season. Honor it. Revisit it with gratitude. Because that's where the real you was born. That's where the illusions fell away. That's where you met the depth of who you are. And now, that depth is going to carry you into places your old self only dreamed of. The doors that are about to open won't just be opportunities. They'll be confirmations. The world will see, but you will already know. You'll nod silently, not in arrogance, but in sacred knowing. This is what I was built for. You see, in that quiet season, you were being hidden not because you were unworthy, but because you were too valuable to be exposed prematurely. The delay wasn't punishment. It was preservation. You weren't buried. You were planted. And every second you spent underground was preparing you to rise in a way that could not be undone. The world glorifies speed, but destiny honors timing. And the timing over your life has always been sacred. That's why things didn't align when you pushed. That's why certain doors refused to open no matter how qualified you were. That's why people walked away even when you gave them your best. It wasn't because you lacked value. It was because they couldn't recognize the version of you that was still being formed. Your silence protected you from distractions that would have detoured your soul. The isolation preserved your essence from influence that would have distorted your direction. In the quiet, you found your true voice, one that didn't echo the world but flowed from within. And that voice has now become your compass. Chosen one, what's coming next will make the silence worth it. The purpose you carry needed this level of preparation. You were being calibrated in the dark for something that's going to shine so bright. Even your past self wouldn't believe it. You're not walking into this next season by accident. You were tailored for it, molded for it, stretched and tested so that when the breakthrough comes, it doesn't break you. And maybe that's why the silence was so loud. Because something inside you always knew. You always felt the weight of something bigger, something more. Even when you didn't have the words. Even when you couldn't explain it. There was a knowing, a pull, a divine ache that whispered, "This is not the end." That whisper kept you alive. It pulled you through the nights you thought would never end. It reminded you of a version of yourself that existed beyond your current pain. And now that version is rising, not as someone new, but as who you've always been beneath the noise, beneath the expectations, beneath the limitations. You were not overlooked. You were handpicked. You weren't forgotten. You were shielded. And now that the quiet season has done its work, you're about to emerge with clarity, strength, and purpose that no chaos can shake. The world hasn't seen this version of you yet. The healed, aligned, unshaken version. The one who doesn't need applause to stay grounded. The one who doesn't chase opportunity but creates it. The one who walks into rooms with silent authority because you've already conquered the hardest battle. The one inside yourself. So when you move forward, don't carry the bitterness of delay. Carry the wisdom of it. Don't resent the silence. Revere it, because it's what taught you to trust. It's what trained your spirit to discern what's real. It's what separated you from the crowd. The quiet season was never meant to punish you. It was meant to protect a purpose that others weren't ready to see. Now that you're ready, everything else will align. And the ones who doubted your potential will watch in awe as the very thing they thought disqualified you becomes a mark of your divine preparation. The quiet wasn't empty. It was full of miracles you couldn't yet perceive. But soon, even the silence will begin to speak. And when it does, it'll say, "This one was chosen." There is a mysterious kind of strength that comes from seasons where nobody is clapping for you, where nobody sees the silent battles you're fighting, the thoughts you wrestle with at midnight, or the quiet tears you wipe away before sunrise. But chosen one, you saw it. You lived it. And now you carry a strength no one else can replicate, because it was forged in a sacred space where only you and God were present. Most people would have crumbled under what you endured, but you didn't. You bent, yes, but you didn't break. You questioned, yes, but you didn't quit. That's what sets you apart. That's why you've been set aside. Because the pressure you survived didn't just shape you, it refined you. You were being carved by divine hands, not for performance, but for purpose. And in those quiet days, while others were busy chasing validation, you were learning how to sit still with your soul. You were learning how to listen, how to observe, how to discern. You were growing in ways that don't show on resumes or in social media posts. But now, the roots you built in private will hold you steady in the spotlight others wish for but cannot sustain. Don't underestimate the power of those unnoticed days. That was where your character was formed, where your convictions were tested, where your identity was purified. The quiet wasn't a break. It was a battlefield where your future was secured. You weren't missing out on anything. You were being prepared for everything. And this is why when the time finally arrives, you won't be stepping into your moment with trembling hands. You'll be walking in with a steady gaze and a calm heart, because you know, deep in your being, that you didn't skip the process. You didn't manipulate your way to the front. You were shaped for this, grown for this. Your silence was not a void, it was a vow, a covenant that said, when it's time, nothing will stop what was already written. Chosen one, hear this. The noise you didn't hear in that quiet season is about to be replaced with the sound of manifestation, of doors opening, of favor chasing you down. Not because you screamed the loudest, but because your heart aligned the deepest. That alignment is rare. That stillness you carried, it's power, it's depth. It's the mark of someone who knows how to hold weight without needing the world to hold their hand. This is why things are shifting so rapidly now. Because heaven is responding to what you built silently, not with applause, not with fanfare, but with stability. The kind of peace that doesn't shatter under pressure. The kind of faith that doesn't need proof to stand tall. The kind of clarity that knows when to speak and when to move in silence. Everything that once felt like a delay was never wasted. Even the moments you thought were failures were part of the setup. The missteps, the rejections, the nights you stared at the ceiling wondering if it was all for nothing. None of it was random. Each of those moments stitched a new layer into your calling. And now, you are a tapestry of resilience and grace, not just chosen, but trusted. You didn't just survive the quiet season. You matured in it. That time of stillness was not a pause in your purpose. It was the preparation. While others rushed to be seen, you were being taught how to stand. You learned how to breathe in chaos, how to find clarity when the world was loud, and how to trust when nothing around you made sense. Those weren't empty months. They were sacred chapters. And perhaps you noticed it too. People pulled away. Opportunities vanished. The doors you expected to open stayed shut. And it made you question your value, your direction, your timing. But what you didn't see was that those very closures were divine protection. You were not being punished. You were being insulated. Because where you were going required a purity of purpose that cannot be built while everyone's eyes are on you. You were hidden, not forgotten. Sheltered, not sidelined. That season was a spiritual greenhouse. A place where your identity was nourished. Your wounds were being healed. Your wisdom was taking root. It was there that you began to see the difference between noise and direction, between movement and alignment. You stopped chasing every open door and started listening for the right one. And now, the fruit of that hidden growth is beginning to show, not just in what you do, but in who you are. You walk differently now. You speak with more depth. You don't react the way you used to. You've been seasoned. The fire you walked through refined you, and the silence you sat in expanded you. It carved space within you for the weight of what's coming. Because what's coming is not light. It's not small. It's not fleeting. It's sacred. It's divine, and it will require everything you built in the quiet to carry it. The world sees a light, but God sees the roots. And your roots are deep now. You are not easily shaken. And that chosen one is why you were hidden for so long. Because the next season is one where you will not just walk, you will build. But not everything from the old season can come with you. Some relationships were only meant for your hidden phase. Some environments were only suitable for your early growth. You will have to let go of familiar patterns in order to walk into divine patterns. It may feel uncomfortable. You may grieve. But know this, nothing you truly need will be taken from you. Only what was weighing you down will fall away. The quiet season taught you how to recognize what's real. That discernment is your armor now. You don't just hear what people say. You feel their intention. You don't chase crowds anymore. You protect your peace. And this makes you powerful in ways the world does not expect. Because your power does not come from being loud. It comes from being aligned. This is why what's about to come won't overwhelm you. It's not luck. It's not coincidence. It's divine alignment meeting divine timing. And you, chosen one, are ready. You're not early. You're not late. You're right on time. The time you were prepared for when no one was watching, when no one was clapping, when it was just you, your prayers, and the silence. That's where you became unstoppable. At some point, you began to realize the quiet season wasn't just about survival. It was a dismantling, not of your value, but of the illusions that clouded it. You were being stripped of the need to be validated, to be applauded, to be understood. All the masks you once wore, the strong one, the agreeable one, the one who made it look easy, started to feel too heavy. And in that stillness, without distractions or noise, you were forced to meet your raw self. You saw your own eyes in the mirror and didn't recognize them at first. They had tiredness in them, but not weakness. They had history, layers, pain, fire. But beyond that, they held something else, a flicker of becoming, a depth that couldn't be faked. It was in that season you realized that the things you once called losses were actually holy realignments. That when people walked away, they weren't rejecting you. They were making space for the version of you that hadn't been born yet. The silence, though painful, gave you a front row seat to your own rebirth. You stopped trying to return to who you were and began asking who you were becoming. The quiet taught you not to fear the pause, but to embrace it. It was not the end of the story. It was a sacred inhale before destiny exhaled something greater. What felt like isolation was really incubation. And you, chosen one, were being reshaped from the inside out. And let's not forget how many times you were tempted to give up. How many days you sat with clenched fists, wondering if any of it was worth it. How many nights you whispered, "Why me?" into the dark. But still, you didn't quit. You didn't turn bitter. You didn't sell out. You stayed. Even if barely, you held on, even if by a thread. And that is what separated you. That is what marked you. Not perfection, but persistence. Because the enemy wasn't afraid of your perfection. He was terrified of your resilience, your ability to keep standing, even when everything inside you begged to collapse. Your capacity to still believe, even when every door was closed. Your refusal to become like those who hurt you. That level of internal power isn't built in spotlight seasons. It's born in the shadows, in the silences, in the storms no one sees. So now, as things begin to stir, as the wind starts to shift, don't be surprised if you begin to feel a strange stillness again. It's not regression. It's the moment before the reveal. Just like a sunrise breaks slowly across the sky, your next season is unfolding with divine precision, piece by piece, light by light. And you, chosen one, are already in position. You've already let go of what you needed to release. You've already walked through the tests. You've already cried the tears that unlock the next level of your anointing. The reason it's taken this long is because what's coming wasn't rushed. It's too valuable. And so are you. Heaven doesn't throw treasure out carelessly. It hides it, protects it, grooms it, until the time is right. And now, the time is nearly here. But before it fully unfolds, remember this. The version of you who prayed for this, who suffered for this, is still inside you. Don't forget them. Don't rush past the depth you gain in the quiet for the sake of movement. Let everything that happens next be rooted in the stillness you fought for. Let your growth be anchored, not flashy. Let your presence be powerful, not loud. That's the mark of the chosen. They do not need attention to walk in authority. You weren't just prepared for what's coming. You were preserved for it. You've come further than you realize. You see, when the world slowed down and doors shut and people went silent, it wasn't just life shifting, it was a divine rearranging. You thought you were being punished, forgotten, or delayed. But what was really happening? You were being hidden, shielded, and preserved. Not because you were weak, but because your mission was weighty. Not everyone can carry what you carry. Not everyone can survive what you've survived. And now, the signs are starting to show. Not loud, not dramatic, but subtle, like a soft stirring in the atmosphere. Something inside you feels it. You're waking up with more clarity. You're walking with deeper peace. You're no longer anxious about what didn't happen. You're more focused on preparing for what will. And that's the difference between the old you and the one standing now. You no longer crave validation. You crave alignment. There's a strange calmness to you now. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You've learned the difference between being still and being stuck. You've embraced the silence not as absence, but as a sacred cocoon. And that stillness made you dangerous. Because now you move with intention. You speak with authority. You pause when needed, but never out of fear, always out of discernment. The quiet season stripped you of many things. Old beliefs, worn-out identities, draining relationships, expectations that never belonged to you. But it also gave you something sacred, clarity of purpose. And now you see with fresh eyes. You recognize the counterfeits faster. You detect manipulation quicker. You no longer chase temporary highs. You crave depth, truth, and divine instruction. And because of that shift, because of that inner alignment, you are now magnetic to what is meant for you. The delay didn't destroy your calling. It deepened it, refined it, gave it roots. Because what is built fast can fall fast. But what is built in silence, in solitude, in sacred struggle, that lasts. That carries eternal weight. That shakes atmospheres. So, chosen one, hear this clearly. Your breakthrough is not just coming, it has already begun. It's not in the future. It's unfolding now within you. Every day, a layer is breaking off. Every moment, something sacred is rising. Don't expect it to be loud. Expect it to be real. True change doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it even now. The sound of the final lock clicking open. Everything you've been through wasn't just a path. It was a pattern. It was meant to shape your pace, stretch your patience, and position your perspective. You learn how to wait, not in frustration, but in faith. You learn how to let go, not in fear, but in freedom. You discovered that not every battle is yours to fight, and not every opportunity is yours to accept. You stopped forcing doors that were never meant to open. You stopped begging to be seen by people who were never meant to recognize you. You learned that rejection isn't the end. Sometimes it's divine redirection. And now, with all that weight released, you move differently. You're not chasing anymore. You're attracting, not striving, just aligning. And that's why this new season will not look like the last. Because this time, you are not who you were. This time, you are grounded in truth, guided by peace and guarded by grace. Your wounds no longer define you. They refined you. Your past no longer haunts you. It humbled you. And your future? It's not just coming. It's already knocking. And when it comes, when the final piece clicks into place, you will not be surprised. Because you'll realize every step, every silence, every delay, it was all part of the setup. You weren't forgotten. You were being fortified. You weren't lost. You were being led. You weren't broken. You were being rebuilt. So breathe deep. Stand tall. The quiet season is behind you. And the moment you've been prepared for, the moment that seemed distant, impossible, delayed, it's here. Welcome it. Honor it. Walk in it. You are not stepping into something new. You are stepping into who you've always been. Welcome back, chosen one. The world is finally ready for you.